Hello, my name is Darian Fiorino, he, him, and I am a senior social media coordinator at the National Audubon Society. Today, I am so excited to be speaking with two judges for the 2026 Audubon Photography Awards, Senior Plants for Birds Program Manager Marlene Pantin and Communications Director for Community Building Martha Harbison. We'll be having a live Q&A with Marlene and Martha in a little bit, so please drop any questions you have for them in the comments and we'll try to get to as many as possible. But first, what are the Audubon Photography Awards? Well, the Audubon Photography Awards are one of the most respected nature photography competitions in the world. They celebrate the beauty and diversity of birds by honoring the best photos and videos of bird life. You can enter your photos and videos today through March 4th at 12 noon Eastern Time via audubon.org/APA. And that's a link you will be hearing a lot today for a chance to win great prizes. What are the grand prizes? The grand prize for both the United States and the Canada contest and the Chile and Colombia contest is $5,000 plus a voyage to Antarctica with HX Expeditions, a company renowned for its commitment to sustainable expedition cruising. The highlights of Antarctica voyage combines birding, conservation, and exploration in a one-of-a-kind trip with HX Expeditions. You'll experience a full program of expertly guided activities and excursions. HX is also a proud sponsor of the 2026 Audubon Photography Awards, and we're grateful for their support in helping make this year's contest possible. So now I'm going to welcome on Marlene and Martha, and while we're bringing on our guests, we'd love to know what birds everyone at home has been seeing in their neighborhoods. It's super cold out where I am, so I've been seeing some white-throated sparrows trying to forage for food on snow and ice. It's a lot of what I'm seeing. Let's see. Okay. Hi, Martha. Hi, Marlene. Welcome to the live.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Would you like to start by introducing yourselves a little bit? Marlene, let's start with you.
So hi, as you said, I am the Senior Manager for the Plants for Birds program here at Audubon, National Audubon Society. And as the name suggests, it is a program about native plants and highlighting the importance of native plants to birds. And how important they are for providing food, shelter, and for birds to raise their young. So I've been leading that program for about, helping and then leading that program for about the past 7 years. So it's been a wonderful journey working with all the different teams across the country to ensure that we bring more native plants to the public's attention.
All right, guess I'm
Martha,
up.
how about you?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, so I'm a communications director for National Audubon Society. Very specifically, I tell the story of Audubon. My focus is mostly on the Audubon website. So you'll see, if you go to our website at all, you're going to see my work being presented both on the back end and then with some stories that I've either written or that I've edited. in the context of the Audubon Photography Awards, I am also a member of the Galbatross Project, where we focus on female bird identification, specifically in North America, because we noticed that there was actually a paucity of knowledge around that. It was all hidden away in either specialty books or actually like just scientific publications, and we're trying to bring that to a much larger audience.
Great. So, as we're going to talk about a lot throughout this program, the Audubon Photography Awards covers a lot of ground. We have prizes ranging from a video prize to a bird prize, a Plants for Bird prize, Birds Without Borders, Birds in Landscapes, Conservation, Grand Prize, and more. Now, as we get into this program, I want to look at a couple of past year's winners in some of these prizes to get a better understanding of what makes an image award-winning for the Audubon Photography Awards. So I'm going to pull up last year's Columbia Plants for Birds winner. This is an image of a purple-backed thornbill feeding on Gaiadendron punctatum, and it was photographed in Villa Maria, Colombia by Kristen Valencia. What, Martha and Marlene, first grabs your image with this photo?
I think for me, it's the color, of course, the color of the bird. It's a beautiful purple. And then you have this vibrant yellow in the photograph. And then, of course, the fact that the bird is feeding on this plant, right? We know that this important interaction around native flora and fauna is what we're seeing in this photograph. And it's one of the things that immediately grabs me. Martha, what about you?
So in addition to all of that, in the female bird prize, we see lots and lots of hummingbird photos because it's relatively easy to sex hummingbirds, or say like it's not a male, so it probably be a female. And I see so many blurry wings. So for me, looking at this image with the really crisp edges along the wings is very notable because I don't see that very often. And it shows it shows a focus on behalf of the photographer to get a great shot.
That's so true. I hadn't even considered how still the wings are in this frame relative to images I usually see of hummingbirds. I also did a bit of digging about this plant. It's an invasive plant that's native to some parts of Central and South America, or not invasive, sorry. It's a parasitic plant that is native to some parts of Central and South America, and much like a mistletoe. And these beautiful yellow flowers, it's something I'd never heard of prior to diving into this image. So it did help me to develop my understanding of relationship in our natural world, which I think is super cool, along with all these really vivid colors. Okay, let's move on to another Plants for Birds winner. This is the United States and Canada Plants for Birds winner in 2025. It is a photo by Barbara Swanson of a Brandt's cormorant, featuring plants that I don't typically, they're not at the front of my mind when I think of plants, and those are marine plants like seagrass and red grape algae. Marlene, what do you notice immediately about this image?
I think the first thing that grabbed me with this photo was, of course, the weeds in the bird's beak, right? Because it's such a beautiful color. And then, of course, you look at the bird's head and the eyes and that blue. And then, of course, it contrasts with that very dark background. I think one of the comments I made about this photo as well is the bird is in action, and it feels like there's something happening outside of our view that really you're capturing in the eyes of the bird. You're making, it leaves you with a question of what is this bird about to do? What is happening here? But we can see the importance of nesting material for these birds, right? Plant materials. And that this photo was taken in California, and that these birds are nesting along the cliffs in California, and how important those weeds are for them. So what we go to the beaches and we think of as not that big a deal, for these birds, this is important for them for nesting and for raising their young. But there's so much that you could take away from this photograph, and I absolutely loved it when I first saw it, because it sort of combined that interaction of plant and birds, and it was identifiable, easily identifiable as well, and that it all made it such a wonderful frame and a wonderful photo as well.
Yeah, I just love.
How about you?
Yeah, every time I come across this photo, I just get a thrill in my heart again. Just everything that Marlene said, just the dynamism of the image, the almost fleshiness of the sea grapes. Like it's just, they're very juicy. And like when you get a really good look at this photo up close, you're just like, wow, there's a lot going on just with these plants. And I'm a birder. I love Brandt's cormorants. They're these really delicate, like usually when you see, like you're used to a double crested cormorant and they're pretty, or at least out east, we also have great cormorants and they're pretty hefty. Whereas Brandt's cormorants are much more delicate. And so I just actually love the fact that you can perceive that in this image as well. So yeah, this is actually one of my favorite photos that's ever come out of the Audubon Photography Awards is this one.
Yeah, it's a stunning photograph, and I think it graced the cover of Audubon magazine, which speaks to its beauty.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Beautiful image. From what I'm familiar with Brandt's cormorants, I'm glad the smell is not included with their nesting colonies. I so associate that with fishy odor.
Oh yeah,
beautiful to look at. Okay, now let's look at some winners in a different category that we'll be talking a lot about today, which is the female bird category. So I'm going to pull up the United States and Canada female bird winner from 2025. And it is of a chipping sparrow. It's a photograph taken by Sean Persley in Bogus Basin, Idaho. Martha, what do you notice first about this image?
Yeah, so I just love like it's such a sweet image. Like, you know, it's compared to a lot of the photos that we see in the Audubon Photography Awards, which are like, they're very active and fast and whatever. This is actually a much quieter image, but there's a lot still happening. And we are looking at a bird that a lot of people overlook. You know, everyone's like, oh, sparrows. I don't look at sparrows. And it's like, sparrows are amazing. And chipping sparrows in particular are great. But what, from the female bird standpoint, why the other Galbatrosses and I loved, and our photography judge loved this image, is because you can tell this is a female bird and it's based on behavior. Usually when you think about, like, I'm going to find a female bird, you're looking at some type of sexual dimorphism. That means the males and females look different. That's not true of every bird. A lot of times what we're looking for is actually a different behavior. And in this case, with chipping sparrows, only females collect nesting material and build the nests. So being able to capture that type of very specific knowledge and demonstrate it in such a gorgeous photograph, like, to us, it just like it blew us all away. We're like, as soon as it came up on the screen, we're like, yeah, that's my winner. We, again, just also because chipping sparrows are so underrated.
Definitely. Marlene, what do you think about this image?
One of the things I absolutely love, of course, being the plant person, I'm immediately looking at the plants, and I just love the contrast of that green, almost a yellow-green contrast against the color of the birds. And what I also appreciate, of course, is the nesting material in its mouth. And I love the tilt of the head, right? It's just, as Martha said, it's a quiet photo, but it tells such a big story. And I really do love this photo for the simplicity of it, but also I love the contrast of colors and even how the background color, that light against some of the darker spaces in it, how it sort of matches up with the plants that we see in the foreground. So to me, it's a really captivating photo.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you both said about this being something that is a little quieter, about sparrows and like lichen being something that are easy to kind of fade into the background. They're not like the birds that make your jaw drop unless you look at them through this lens that this photography helps us to. It really makes you realize that there are things that are special that we oftentimes pass over in our everyday. And let's move on to one final image. This is the honorable mention for the US and Canada Female Birds Award. Is a photo by Taryn Ware of an acorn woodpecker taken in Julian, California. Martha, what are your thoughts on this image?
Yeah, so I mean, acorn woodpeckers are just awesome in general. They have like such interesting, complex family relationships. And if you've ever heard them, they have the wildest vocalizations. They sound like a bunch of like unhinged clowns coming after you. in an oak savanna. It's great. And then with like them caching all of the acorns into their into these snags. So for us, like really just like again the moment of seeing this bird in the middle of a really complex behavior, in this case caching, is what really stood out to us. Also just the fact that you can see the field mark. The male and female acorn woodpeckers are sexually dimorphic, and what you look for is on its forehead. You can see here that this bird has like the little white front on its face, and then there's the black band, and then the red. In the males, it goes from white to red, so there's no black band in the middle. So that's a very like really fast way for you to be able to find a female bird.
And then Marlene, what do you think?
For me, it's the simplicity, and what captures me here is this tiny little bird. And there's the backdrop of this huge trunk, right? Tree trunk, which I think is so interesting. And it tells you so much about, as Martha said, the behavior of the birds that is captured here. And it's one of the things that I absolutely love about it, right? We can see it in action. We could see what it's up to, but also just that simplicity of this tiny little bird depending on this tree. And it really highlights how important these trees are to birds and to their survival. And I absolutely do love it. I just think it's a beautiful color contrast as well. So I do love that about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Acorn woodpeckers can get pretty territorial about their caching trees. So it's like we could imagine this bird is like looking at a bunch of other acorn woodpeckers off the, outside of the frame and being like, all right, try me, bro. But but we've caught like the moment where it's like, yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah, for such tiny birds, they certainly are intense. Martha, I've always heard their calls described as like a dog's squeaky toy, which I can never unhear.
Yeah,
And
they're great.
like some people in our comments are noticing this, although maybe not as identifiable, this is like you said, Marlene, like a plant helping to support a bird. So that these are, although not a Plants for Birds winner, there's lots of overlap in the stories that these images can tell.
Yeah.
Amazing. So that is the last of the previous year's winners that we were going to look over. We are now going to begin answering some questions, both pre-prepared and collected from our audience, and then again from our live audience. So we want to remind everyone in the comments to continue submitting questions for Martha and Marlene. We will get to as many of them as we can in the time we have. So just to start, I would like for both of you to tell us a bit about the backgrounds that you're bringing to the Audubon Photography Awards judges panel. Martha, I'll let you go first.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I alluded to this a little bit, but I have a fair bit of expertise in female bird identification, and I spend a lot of time looking at bird photos because I help build our website. One of the reasons why we started the Female Bird Prize in the first place is because we realized we did not have a lot of great photography of female birds. And this was a way for us to really help raise the profile of female birds and the photographs of them. So for me, like the other Galbatrosses and I, what we bring to the table is really our knowledge. We can look at these photos and really be able to evaluate, like, is this actually showcasing a female bird in a way that we feel is representative of that species' behavioral traits, habits, how we see them in the field. All the Galbatrosses are birders, so we have fairly extensive experience with a lot of the species, like personally. And so it's like, is this photograph actually reflecting what we've also experienced observing this bird out in the wild?
Yeah, that's great. Marlene, can you tell us a bit more about your involvement with the Plants for Birds program?
Sure. So I think, like Martha, number one, of course, experience, because working at Audubon, you get the opportunity to do a lot, right? And in my case, I work with so many teams identifying plants all the time, right? I do get those requests. Is this native? Is it non-native? Is it this? Is it that? So you do spend a lot of time deep diving in, and that's what I've been doing at Audubon. And then, of course, outside of Audubon, working at the local level in my local community, helping to steward parks and spaces like that. And so having then to interact there as well with plants to try and learn more. So it's between that constant, I always think like a sort of a academic, very formal thing that Martha and I are doing, right? Where we are constantly doing this as part of our job, but then we're also doing the things that we love outside as well that sort of contributes and adds and amplifies that work as well.
Great. So I hope our audience at home hears loud and clear. We are sitting with pros today, so don't be shy with your questions.
I don't know about the pros part, but
I'm gonna say, like, way to suck the joy out of it, Darian.
we'll pretend.
You're doing a pretty good job if you're just pretending. Okay. So the plants for birds category, like you alluded to earlier, Marlene, it's more than just a beautiful photo of a plant with a beautiful photo with a beautiful bird included. Like there is some relationship that we're trying to glean from the submissions. Can you talk more about what you're looking for in submissions in this category?
Okay, so definitely want to have birds that are interacting with plants and identifiable plants, right? If someone gives us a photo of a piece of a leaf and we can't tell anything else about it, that makes it difficult. So we want to have photos of birds interacting with plants, whether they're flowers or shrubs or trees. And then it's also important that those plants be native to the area in which that photograph was taken. Right. So you may go somewhere and take a photo and you say, oh, but this is a very native plant to the US, but it may not be a native plant to that area that you're in. And so that's one of the things we want to encourage folks to do. Of course, we're not looking for photographs with invasive plants. That's not something we want to promote. So we definitely want to bring attention to how vital native plants are as a resource for birds. And so I do love that we have this category. And I will say whoop whoop for the fact that, our Plants for Birds category last year made it onto the cover of the magazine. But that is something that is important. And I may be jumping ahead here, Darian, but I would say to folks, if you've taken a photo and you're not quite sure if the plant is native or not, Audubon has our resource, which is our native plant database. That is actually really helpful, and it provides you information about the best native plants for your local area down to your zip code level. So if you take a photo in an area and you wonder, well, is it native, is it not to this area, go use the database. You can use other native plant databases as well as another resource, but Audubon's native plant database is a wonderful resource, and it can help guide you as well as to learn the basics of whether it's native or non-native, if it's invasive. But it is important that it be a native plant. That's really important for us, and that it's native to the area that you've taken that photo.
Great. And we'll be dropping the link for Audubon's native plant database in the comments, so you all can check it over at your leisure. You've already answered some of our audience questions. People are wondering what plants they can plant to support their backyard birds. So thank you for that. And then Martha, same question for you with the female birds category. I know you definitely alluded to this earlier about what makes for a quality image of a female bird that tells a story that would be like celebrated in these awards. Do you have anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think that it's like, as the way that we approach it really is like, is this image celebrating a female bird, either from the structural standpoint, from the plumage, from their behavior, some way that they're interacting with their environment. We get really excited when people will when photos will show up that that do show behaviors, because that is more unusual. Most people are used to just taking photos of a sexually dimorphic bird, usually a lot of ducks or hummingbirds, things that are quite obvious. One of the things that's great with that is if your photograph actually shows the field mark, because we have definitely argued back and forth whether or not a bird is a juvenile male, or can we actually sex this bird? It's certainly not an adult male, but is it actually an adult female, or at least identifiable as a female? And that's certainly caused us to learn a lot. Even while judging, we have found, like, we've discovered new field marks on birds in literature based on whether or not we are comfortable with the photo that we've seen, that we want to advance it to the next round. So thanks, photographers. You're teaching me by sending your photos in. But one of the things that I guess, like, one of the unusual things that we've noticed with the female bird category is how people anthropomorphize birds heavily. We got a lot of people who are saying, like, this bird is feeding babies, therefore it must be female, and that is not actually true across a whole bunch of taxa. Lots and lots and lots of birds do not separate out chick rearing or brooding or even nest construction or egg incubation is not female only. Like, for some species, yes, but for a lot of species, it's not. So it's actually been interesting to sort of, like, plumb the psychological depths of bird photographers to see, like, how many of them are bringing some of their own preconceptions to the proceedings. So I'd say, like, if you have a bird and it's got, like, chicks in the frame as well, ask yourself, like, am I reading too much into this? And then look at a field guide, because a lot of times they will talk about, like, those behaviors.
It's so interesting.
Can I also jump in and say, because I think Martha touched on it, Darian, and I think it's so important is for folks to realize that it really is a privilege to do this, because it requires us to go in and do research and deep dive sometimes when we have a ton of questions about a photograph or we're not sure or whatever. So it isn't simply us bringing whatever knowledge we have, but it's also us enhancing that by making sure we seek out reputable information about our plants, in my case, or maybe Martha with the birds, to sort of come to a decision. And it's something I enjoy, because I learn so much more about plants that I didn't know before. So there's always something new that I'm picking up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was gonna say, it's never just looking at photos and being like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
No, it's like,
yeah,
all right, well, here are the 50 that we actually have to, like, go back and check.
yeah, definitely.
It's great to know that there's such a level of, like, rigor going into these reviews. One of our audience members asked, actually, like, what is the submission and then review process like? You know, you just spoke a little bit about it.
I guess I'll take that first really quickly. So after the photos are submitted, there's, like, a pre-selection process, which I don't have any, like, we don't touch that, but, like, the people who help run the contest are, like, you know, filtering out, like, photos that are, like, obviously AI or obviously, like, super blurry or things like that. So the first couple of times that I judged the Audubon Photography Awards, they didn't do that process, and we had so many, like, it was brutal. So they're doing a pre-filter first, so that by the time the subject matter expert judges and photographer judges get to the finalists, we have a selected list that's, you know, still a 1,000 photographs large, or 500. I mean, there's a lot of photos in there.
Yep.
And then we go through and we individually, as judges, will pick our top 10 favorites, and then we will compare, and some of them will, like, rise to the top immediately, and then others, there'll be, like, these dark horses that come in and be like, oh, whoa, tell me why you like that one. And that's the ones that, like, those are the ones that actually end up winning a lot, or not the ones that are the obvious early favorites, but the ones that actually spark discussion.
Yeah.
So Marlene, I don't know if it's any different with you.
No, I think it's similar. I mean, yes, I am the person judging the plants for birds, but it's the same idea as what Martha shared. The pre-filtering is happening. It comes to me. I have hundreds of them that I look through, and then determine what moves up. I mean, some are easy because you look at them and be like, this is invasive, or this is not native to where the photograph was taken. And then I make a selection of a number of them, and then I move that up to the team for when we have the bigger judging days. So I would say there's judging rigor at every level. So even when I make my selections, then we will come into a larger group where we'll talk about those photos and the value of them. And that's not just about the plants, but also the points that we bring up, ensuring that the bird photography is ethical, right, and responsible. If we notice something's off about that photo, no matter how beautiful it is, that would be a signal that we need to consider what to do with that photo. So there are all these different steps that we are doing, and it's a very rigorous process.
Yeah, I will say the ethics is, again, that's the thing. Like, we have definitely disqualified photos who were like, even if we think that it might have been taken ethically, like sometimes we're like, you know what, it just feels off, you know. So we want to make sure that among the highest thing is do not harm the birds. Yep. However you get that photo, don't harm the birds. I will say, like, one thing I wanted to add is that, Marlene, I don't know if you've noticed this, but we've noticed trends over the years. Like one year it was like we got nothing but northern harriers. It was just like so many northern harriers. Last year it was all birds having sex. I was like, how many times am I going to have to look at birds having sex? And I have to say, like, yes, chances are high that when you have two birds in a photograph having sex, the one on the bottom is probably a female, but not always. There was a paper that came out last June that looked at same-sex relations across bird taxa, and it happens a lot more often than people realize, and people are now starting to study that. So I'd say, like, again, make sure that your assumptions, like, again, the chances are mostly high that that's probably a male and female pair, but not always, especially when they're gulls.
Okay. You're teaching me something, Martha.
Yeah. So
we're always learning.
Yeah, I think for plants for birds, I would say for plants for birds, oh my God, we get so many hummingbirds and so many northern cardinals. Like, those are the things that tend to pop as well, I would say, and happens like in cycles where you'll just have a ton of them as well coming through. And of course, inevitably, you know, you get all the beautiful bee bombs and black-eyed Susans and that kind of stuff you'll tend to get as well.
Great. Well, that leads us very nicely into our next question from our audience, which is that, are species taken into consideration? Like, are photographs of uncommon species judged differently than common species, like a northern cardinal or a hummingbird?
I would say, just for me, for plants or birds, yes, I'm looking at the plants, but no, I don't make a distinction as to what species of bird it is in terms of, is it common or not. I think regardless, it's about the photograph, and if it's capturing what we're looking for, that's what's important for me.
No, that's exactly true. It's like we get really excited, especially when we get birds that are not necessarily from North America. Like, we're like, yeah, green honey creeper female, and everyone freaks out. But at the end of the day, if the photo isn't amazing, then it's like, the bird's cool, but we're not actually going to advance that to the next stage, because we really need this. Either the photograph has to be exceptional, the bird's doing something unusual, there are no ethical questions in our mind about how the photo was taken. Last year we had one that it was like everybody loved, but again, we're just like, we can't tell how far away this photographer was from the bird, and we know that the species can get disturbed if you get too close. So we ended up having to, and it was a species that we almost never see come through the awards, and it pained us all to have to pass on it. But we're like, at the end of the day, it's like, is the photo great, and was it taken responsibly?
Let's see some other questions from our audience. James asks, do you prefer photos in landscape or portrait orientation? Which I hope is kind of alluded to by the fact that the photos we looked at earlier, they were square, they were landscape, they were portrait. Either one of you want to take that one?
No, I don't pay attention to whether it's landscape or portrait. Is it a good photo? Does it capture the theme of what we're looking for and the intent? And those are the things that matter.
I agree. I will say, however, as somebody who builds a lot of pages on the website, we use a lot of landscape photos. But when it comes to judging, no, it's one thing I do want to bring up. It's like whether it's like landscape reporter or square. One of the things I'd love to see like photographers spend a little bit more time on, because I've seen a number of photos over the years that have been great, except for cropping. Like they just don't crop the photo right, and so the bird either ends up like squashed way over. I can see myself, so I'm like squashed way over on one side or whatever. But the photo ends up feeling unbalanced, and so it's like everything's perfect except the framing of the image, and it's like, okay, that just took it out of the running because it feels, you've cut off like some of your depth of field, which again gives like more interest to the photo, or it makes the bird feel crowded, or sometimes they crop it and the bird's really tiny. You're like, yeah, you could have cropped out off a bunch of that stuff that's outside and like made the bird like pop more. So think a little bit like, if your photography has gotten to the point where you're like reliably getting good crisp photos of the birds, start thinking about like what makes a good crop. Because that is taking your art, taking your craft to the next level.
Yeah.
Yes, and I know there's far more detailed instructions for what is and is not permitted in post on the website at audubon.org/APA.
Darren, can I also say that I think that when folks are taking photos, that from a Plants for Birds perspective, I love when folks give a background, a really wonderful detailed background of how they came to take the photo. And particularly when plants are involved, I do love when folks mention the plant that they've photographed. Yes, common names vary across the country, right? And so that sometimes may present some challenges for some folks, but nevertheless, sharing that sort of detail really helps us as well with assessing the photo. So definitely do it. I know sometimes folks have done that, of course, and then I look at it and I say, oh, I don't think that's what that is, right? But nevertheless, it gives you a sense of their perspective on things. And I do love to get that message and to learn about how they came to take the photograph and what are the details they can share about it.
Yeah, absolutely. The more research you do beforehand, the more like connected you are to the photo too. It helps.
Yeah.
We got a question from Alan. In a world of like primarily digital photography, do you get much 35 millimeter film submissions? Is that something that you're taking at all into consideration?
So we do actually get some film that comes in. I don't actually know the process for getting those in there, but I know that we've seen film imagery in the past. Does it affect my judgment or my judging of the image? No, although I will say, like, as somebody who is a very bad photographer, like, props to anybody who actually, like, is still shooting on 35 millimeter film or whatever. I know how hard that is. It's a lot harder than digital.
I can imagine. I rely so heavily on my my multi-shoot.
Yeah, just like, and then and then delete. It's my partner is actually the bird photographer in our partnership, and I always say that his primary hobby is photographing birds, and his secondary hobby is deleting bad photos.
It's funny. Okay, well, we're like winding down on time, so I have one more question just because we're here at Audubon. I feel like I'm legally obligated to ask this. Favorite bird, Martha, what is it?
Yellow-billed magpie, California endemic, baby.
Wow.
Amazing choice.
I'm pretty boring. I actually like the very common birds because I feel that, especially for us, we're in New York City in an urban area, we tend to see a lot more of the common birds, right? Just in our little backyards or parks or whatever. So for me, a northern cardinal, a blue jay, a mockingbird, those are kind of the birds that I actually pay attention to because I feel that it's the way to easily connect with people in your community who aren't into birding or anything like that.
Yeah, birds like those help us see that there is beauty literally everywhere. And I'm going to say blue-headed vireo, but it changes regularly.
That's a good one. I love those birds.
Yeah. There's no bad option, really. Well, thanks, everyone, for tuning in today. Remember that the 2026 Audubon Photography Awards close on March 4th at 12 noon Eastern Time. You have a little over 2 weeks from today. So be sure to submit your photos and videos before then via audubon.org/APA. With that, we're going to let you all go. Have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Hey,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.